Welcome to episode 36 of the Loane Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about special defenseman who came off an elite Holinka Gretzky Cup run and who plays for the Erie Otters. He was the first overall pick in the 2023 OHL priority selection, just coming off a dominant Holinka performance with 6 points in 5 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. That is Matthew Schaefer, left shot defenseman. And so, what's really intriguing about Matthew Schaefer's game is you look at the dominant performance that he had at the tournament, how well he played not only offensively but defensively, and the translatable components within his offensive and defensive habits that are very rare and nuanced for a young defenseman at this age. And watching him a lot of the times, it really reminded me of Sam Dickinson out of last year's and this past June's draft class, who was drafted 11th overall by the San Jose Sharks. He reminded me a little bit of Sam Dickinson with better defensive habits and a better brain and a better overall brain and sense of understanding different routes and off puck routes and timing elements and stuff along the lines of that. And with Schaefer, it's really intriguing. You're getting a complete defenseman. So right now, you can arguably have him as, say, a top five player in this draft class, not only become because of his Holinka performance, but the quality of player that he is in general. He's an on ice and off ice leader. He plays both ends of the rink. He transitions pucks really well. He's really efficient as a breakout guy, really efficient as an entry guy as well. You're looking at a guy that can play complete in all ends of the rink, and that's very rare for a defenseman to have. And certainly potential that he could evolve into a number one defenseman in the NHL if he continues to trend in a positive direction. Where having this dominant of a performance at this tournament, he could very likely end up with 70, 80 plus points in the OHL this coming season. And he looks like he's going to have a really good year in Erie as well. And with Schaefer, what I really like, again, we go back to some timing elements in terms of his off puck routes and timing there, but the off puck timing elements are really important in terms of his ozone play and how he's able to activate on the wall, activate in small area sequences, understanding of how to keep the play moving fluidly and not lose speed in any situation, either with or without the puck. So by being able to maintain that degree of route timing and proactive route timing within his mind and understanding of how to move on time, how to activate his feet in a timely way, and how to move into space. You're getting a lot of different advantages there in terms of the makeup of his game and how he can activate and how he can time his abilities in different situations. And the other thing I really noticed and really liked about his game was the poise and the composure they had in every single situation. Now it's so easy for some of these defensemen, especially not only in Team Canada, but all across the board, this Holinka tournament to be easily rattled by the new tournament, the new players around them, everything. But with Schaefer, it looked like he's was part of the team. He could easily be part of the team for longer because of how well he maintained composure with the puck, how well he maintained composure handling possession or extending possession, being able to pinch, being able to activate, being able to surf, utilize his angles, utilize his stick. He was very composed in terms of defensive habits as well. And that's another noticeable thing I noticed in terms of how he could surf guys and angle guys off. He could do it with composure and calmness and focus. So what's really intriguing about that is that discipline that he had to be able to understand those situations, be able to leverage those situations, leverage his gap, be able to actually control the play rather than letting opponents control him. So with Schaefer, you're getting a possession stifling defenseman in terms of actual defensive play and a guy who can really mitigate the play in defensive zone situations on neutral zone line rush against in general, and being able to understand how to cut ice in half with not only his stick, but his feet and his body. So those multiple elements combined, he understands body orientation, how to orient his body in ways where he can give himself advantages. And I noticed that a lot on his surfing attempts where he would curve around the puck and he would curve around the puck in a way where it would give him leverage so that way he could keep his stick position in middle ice. He has a habit and a knack for positioning his stick there automatically. It's like an automatic switch for him. He's automatically going to position his stick in the middle of the ice if he's trying to angle guys off or trying to cut the ice off so he can keep guys on the perimeter of the ice and not allow interior space. And very rarely, if not any of the times, did I see Matthew Schaefer allow guys to get to the interior. And it's so hard to say a negative thing about him because when you look at even the defensive habits, the defensive details, the defensive makeup of his old game, and how well his stick work is utilized, his discipline, his footwork, his discipline in his body, and how he can control his body. He can control both his upper and lower really well in terms of his body, and being able to understand how to utilize not necessarily physicality, but more so body positioning elements that go into separating guys from pucks, so he can maintain that degree of energy within his own play. In a sense, there were some like in terms of the consistency, it reminded me a little bit, and obviously this is a very brief tournament, so it's easy to overestimate guys sometimes, but the consistency I saw in his defensive habits is somewhat like Nick Lidstrom in a sense. Now, look, Nick Lidstrom, obviously a Hall of Fame defenseman, but you look at the makeup of his angles, his positional details, how he utilizes energy to not play brute physicality and utilize brute physicality, but rather use his energy towards body positioning and try to go stick on puck. So that way he can conserve his energy for the next play and maintain his energy. And however long he played, he usually played upwards of 30, 35, sometimes 35, usually around 30 minutes a game when he's playing for the Red Wings in the 90s. But in terms of that positional detail, that's what I really saw from Schaefer. That was really intriguing in terms of that comp element and how he can maintain that conservation of energy to be able to rely more on body positioning and stick on puck sequences to be able to not only maintain energy through the defensive sequence, but leading that to the next play, to the offensive sequence, and beyond that point as well. So with Schaefer, what's really interesting about that and really interesting about his transition game is obviously the composure within his transition details as well. I was really intrigued by how well he was transitioning pucks and how efficient he was at transitioning pucks. So sometimes you get guys who are good on breakouts, but not necessarily good on entries. But with Schaefer, he was really good at both, and he was really good at controlling the middle lane, controlling plays on diagonals, controlling possessions on diagonals inside the neutral zone. So there are intriguing elements of Schaefer's game inside the neutral zone in terms of diagonal playmaking, lateral playmaking elements that tied back to his ozone structure and how he can enter the ozone and how he can enter the ozone moving laterally as well. That gave some deception elements to his game, to his puck skills as well. With Schaefer, what I really like about his ozone entries is sometimes he could utilize different ways of entering the zone. He can use deception within his feet, or he can utilize manipulation by manipulating the opponent's feet to get to where he wants to go. He can use pullbacks. He can use cutbacks. He can really use his skating effectively in terms of pivoting on a dime and pivoting in a quick manner to be able to change direction, be able to create separation space for himself. Really good at doing that and really elite at doing that. It was really noticeable within his own game and within his own details as well. And with Matthew Schaefer, what I also really like is the activation elements. And we talked a little bit about it before, but I wanted to go back to it because what I really like about the activation elements is how he can activate. Obviously, walking the line is very important for a modern defenseman. So naturally, any modern defenseman is going to have that. Who's going to be as good as Schaefer in terms of 2025 draft projection. And obviously, he can walk the line really well. He can use his shot really well. He can use both a wrister, slap shot, and one timer elements there. But his ability to activate and his ability to utilize his vision with a heads up style awareness. So being able to maintain both elements was really important for his own decision making elements and being able to tie those back together. And the activation, you see a lot of activation coming down the wall and being able to activate up there. And that can create little small area passing lanes, small area triangle sequences. But he would activate in a timely way and in a purposeful way. So if he didn't want to activate or if he saw an opportunity to activate and it wasn't there, depending on how the possession sequence ended up, he wouldn't go to that area. He would try to find and try to problem solve to go to a different situation, which was really noticeable and really intriguing within his decision making because you could tell he has that presence, that calmness, that presence on the ice to be able to maintain that degree of calmness in any single situation. So that's really intriguing when talk about him and his style of game and the poise he has all over the ice. And we obviously mentioned his shot in some degree, how he can walk the line. There's some flashiness in how he walks the line, not necessarily a ton, but I was really intrigued by how he can utilize his shot. And he actually has a really good shot at this age as well for a defenseman. And that's going to be something he can really weaponize heading in the future to be able to become at least, say, a 20, 30 goal scorer in the NHL as a defenseman if he really pans out to his true potential. And with Schaefer, it's really intriguing when you have the whole package, and you can really build upon that. So for players who already have that elite foundation, like Schaefer has, he can only build upon it more and layer upon it more. So imagine what he can be 5, 10, 15 years from now in terms of stylistically and completeness and ability to be a durable player heading into the future and a consistent player as well. So you're getting a lot of different elements when it comes to Matthew Schaefer, and there's a lot of intrigue from my end when it comes to his game. I really love his game. I enjoy watching him. He's really fun to watch, and you can notice the details in his game right away. It doesn't take very long for anyone to notice those details, and sometimes he plays a little bit more subtly where he can get and he can blend into the background a little bit more, but that's perfectly fine because he does a lot of the things right already, and there's certain things and certain foundations that he can build upon and layer within his game in order to get better and continue to evolve even more as a defenseman heading into the future.